Okay, so another kind of thing I wanted to go into is we've been talking about doing some of those custom cables that I was talking about before, but when I've been putting in all this, the new cabling for all the Cat6A, I've been using these trueCable Keystone jacks for my patch panel, and I've been using the tips from trueCable, and I've also been using this trueCable wire crimper. So again, I keep saying this repeatedly. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm not paid by anyone. I didn't get any free stuff for sponsoring any of this stuff. Nothing. This is what I paid for out of my own pocket, what I chose to use for my own network. So just to get that out of the way again, but I'll say that I used to pull cable 25, 30 years ago, and when I was pulling it, we didn't have any of this stuff. Obviously, I was pulling Cat4 and Cat5, not even Cat5E or anything else, just the original 4 and 5 and some coax, right? So it's been a minute since I've actually crimped down cable, and so far I've found the system to actually be really good. I've actually been pleasantly surprised with how easy it was. However, I will say, with how easy it was or how easy it is, there was a learning curve from the way I used to do it for all the new stuff. So it took me a minute to figure everything out, and once I did, it was actually pretty good. So I'm not going to go through how to terminate cable, but what I will say is I kind of learned a couple tricks along the way. So let me first go into kind of how you do this. So if you look at the inside of the Keystone, it may be kind of hard to see, but it's labeled with color codes on both sides, right? So there's one side, and then I hope that's in focus, but there's the other side. So there's two ways to do this. There's category A, which is labeled at the top, right in the center, and category B. And again, if I apologize because I'm getting old and I can't see if that's in focus right now or not. But anyway, you need to make sure you're either going with category A or category B as far as how you terminate your wires. Because if you terminate it on A, but it's actually B on the other side, it's not going to work. You're going to get errors. So basically what you do is you strip your cable back, you insert it into here, and then you pull each one of these wires into here. And then once you do that, it pops right in here. Let's see, I'm getting it backwards. So it pops right in here, and then you crimp it down and it clicks closed. And they even included some zip ties in the package. So once you get done with that, you come in here to, there it is. The side, you slip it through there, wrap it around, and then crimp it or tie it down with a zip tie. And that's just a safety thing. It actually clicks in, and it's pretty secure, but it's just an extra safety thing. So a couple things I figured out that make this a little bit easier is if I use two things. So the first one is this Klein Tools. It's a little mini side cutter that's made for network wire. So once you pull everything through, you need to get it perfectly flush on the side and clip off the excess wire. If you leave any of the little nubs right there, which I did on a couple of them when I first started using these, when you go to put it in here, the fitment is so tight, which is a good thing, but it's so tight that it'll actually not close properly, and it'll be a royal pain in the butt, and then sometimes it'll actually pull these out. So make sure you have a little mini Klein Tools side cutter right there to make sure it gets nice and flush. So that's the first one. The second one is when you're pulling the cable through. So you put the cable in here, untwist it, and then get everything lined up. So I was using A, so there's orange, white, brown, white. So once you get the cables through here, I would take a little pair of needle nose and pull them through. So I'd basically hold it like this and then pull each through, and make sure I use this needle nose to push it down and pull it down into that groove so it's nice and secure in the groove. Probably took me about 10 or 15 to kind of get used to how this was, but once I did, I kind of figured out the dexterity, and it would be just like pop, 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 side cut, and then crimp. Now, I'm sure there's probably a dedicated crimping tool for crimping this together to make sure it's nice and secure. Here's another little tip, and I know this is so not standard, but it worked really well for me. So if it works well, it's not stupid because it's working, right? So what I would do is I got a pair of vice grips, right? And I measured out the exact width in the vice grip here. So I've actually used these since then, but there's about the right width, right? So it's not pressing down any harder than just a light pressure. But once you get the, oh, well, now it's secured. So I secured it. But once you get this put in here, just take the vice grips and go give it a little crimp, and it would secure it nice and tight. And then I'd come back with this and it was perfect. So I started out, I think it took me 10 minutes to get my first one. And then after I got used to using this system, I think I get an end termination done in about 120 seconds. So maybe like 2-3 minutes, I could get each one knocked down, which is pretty good with stripping the cable, untwisting the cable, getting it in there, getting it crimped, and getting it set in. So I personally like that. I'm not sure what you're using, but I think it's really good. It's got really good positive connection with the shielding that's in the Cat6 in there. So it's got a nice compression fitting. So as long as you're doing your Cat6 right and not stripping it back too far and leaving some of the shielding on the cable to stick through here, it's got a really nice setting. And then it's also a really good, nice tight fitment in my Keystone block. So it was nice and tight. It's not jiggling around. So I've actually been really happy with these. Same thing. These are the connector ends. So this one took me a little bit of time to get used to, but it was actually not too bad either after I got used to it. So, you know, wire goes in there. Make sure you have all your pins in set, and then it's got the wraparound to connect to the shielding. And then the Klein tools the trueCable connector that I've got here, as I showed you, there's A and there's B. So there's color coding here to remind you how it's color coded. It's got a stripper here so you can strip your cable. It's got the crimper here. And then once you're ready to crimp and ground, so once you get your ground. Now, this is another trick that kind of gave me a little issue, but I've kind of figured out. Once you get your cable in here, it's easier to take a little pair of needle nose and straighten that out a little bit before you put it in your crimper here to crimp down this cable. And then also, if you look at this right here, you see how that is hitting on both of those nubs? So I found it was easier to bend this up a little bit and then crimp that in just a tad so it's not so wide. And then when you go to put it in here, they fit right up in there perfectly. And then you can crimp it down. And then to final crimp it, you come in and you crimp it with the second one. And then you've got a really nice crimp that's tied really nicely to your shielding. But again, I just want to show you this again. This is a little too wide here. So first bend it up with your needle nose and then pinch this in a little bit, and then it'll fit in here perfectly. So those are a couple little tricks if you're crimping cable, but this trueCable system in general, after I got used to it, I'm actually really happy with it. If I was doing this commercially and still working in the industry, I'd probably still choose to use this. It's a little bit more expensive, but as far as I can tell, the quality has been really good. It's not been like really cheap knockoff stuff. I mean, this is heavy metal. This is not plastic. Obviously there's plastic on the inside, but this is all metal housing. Really good fitment to my Keystone. Once you get used to putting the wires in here and crimping it down and getting it set, it's actually really good. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, you can buy what you want to buy if you're doing your network, either commercially or for a customer or for doing your own house. But I found this to be really good quality, especially considering I used to actually pull cable myself. Just be aware there's going to be a little bit of learning curve with it, but once you get the dexterity down, you should be good. So anyway, I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.